There's an epidemic of spiking across the UK, and yet official reports and convictions of the crime remain low. Often by the time the victim comes around, it may be too late to gather crucial evidence, leaving them helpless. So what can be done? Why does spiking often go unpunished? And how safe are you when you are out on the town? I'm Sally Bidulph, and this is what you need to know. Hello and welcome to today's episode of What You Need to Know. I'm joined by ITV News reporter Sangita, who's been looking into the epidemic of spiking. I'm delighted to say that I'm also joined by Dawn Dines from Stamp Out Spiking. Welcome to the podcast, both. Sangita, you've been looking into this. It's a growing problem. What have you found?
We've been looking at spiking as a crime and quite interestingly how it's evolving, which is what quite a lot of campaigners are trying to raise awareness to. We've also been speaking to a lot of victims of reported crimes of spiking. Around 80% of victims are young women. But actually, one of the most important things we believe that needs to be highlighted that we've noticed from our research is the number of potential victims who feel that this needs to be talked about more. So we went out filming in Bristol during a bank holiday night, and either we were speaking to women who had been spiked or women who knew of other people who had been spiked, and they themselves were then taking precautions to prevent themselves becoming a victim.
And people are scared, aren't they? They're changing their behaviours.
They are, yeah. And it's something that is second nature to a lot of women we spoke to. You know, they'll always think about whether their drink is covered or where they've placed their drink. They'll think about how they're getting home at the end of the night and who they'll be with. And one thing that really stuck out for us was that a lot of women who had been victims of spiking said that they actually believed that they blamed themselves and they took the responsibility on themselves when they thought that they had been spiked. And I know that that is something that a lot of campaigners are trying to change, and that has changed recently. And I'm sure Dawn can come in there with a few things that you've been talking about, Dawn.
Yes, definitely. You know, and with these statistics that we've just got back, it's quite frightening, really, that not just women, it's men and women who really blame themselves. They're like, this crime feels like that people feel ashamed, they feel embarrassed. And I think it's because they're taken advantage of when they're out enjoying themselves, that they feel a bit partially to blame for these disgusting crimes, when the reality is that there's people going out poisoning other people while they're out enjoying themselves and leading them into, you know, really, really vulnerable positions.
And I mean, the spiking that we hear most about is to do with drinks, isn't it? But it's not just drinks. I mean, I've read something here about that it can even get into vapes. I mean, how does that work?
Yeah, so last year, as we said, this is an evolving crime. So last year we saw an increase in spiking through needles. It's actually something we did a story about. I was interviewing some students at the University of Leeds who said that they woke up with bruises on their arms. That's still quite rare. There's been an increase in vapes being used as a form of spiking, where illegal substances are being put into these vapes and people unknowingly are inhaling it. The most common form of spiking is still drinks. But what needs to be really clear is that spiking is, you have been spiked if there is a substance in your body unknowingly that you didn't know should be in there. You've therefore not given your consent. And that can be, if you go to the bar and order your friend a double when they ask for a single, you know, there's quite a lot around spiking that is unknown to a lot of people. And I think one really important thing that we were told by police was there's almost this culture and attitude around spiking where perpetrators, police say, are doing this as almost a prank. You know, it's for entertainment. Yeah, there's actually not often a secondary offence that's committed, for example, sexual assault or a robbery. And that's actually been one of the most shocking elements of our research, is understanding that this is part of a drinking culture to some extent.
You've been speaking to a couple of victims during your Tonight investigation, haven't you?
Yeah, so one woman that we spoke to was called Nikki, and she talked to me about how she had been She spoke really matter of fact, actually. She talked how she'd been on, not even really a night out, she describes it as she just went out with her husband for a few drinks. They'd only had a couple of drinks. They decided to leave their drinks at the bar, go for a dance on the dance floor, and then they decided they wanted to go back home. So they finished their drinks, and she explained to me how she felt and how quickly what she was feeling came on. And we'll just hear from her.
Got a drink from the bar, put the drinks down, had a dance, then thought, time to go home, finished a drink. And I literally took 1 foot off the pavement. It was so quick to cross the road. And I felt like I was just going down. My husband looked around a bit surprised and said, "Are you okay?" Because we hadn't had that much to drink, thinking what on earth's going on. And I tried to say, "No, I'm not okay." As I was trying to verbalise it, absolute nonsense was coming out of my mouth. I couldn't speak.
And what Nikki actually told me was that when she was lying on the ground, she said she saw 2 police officers standing near her, and she said that she didn't believe that those police officers believed her. She said she could hear her husband telling them that he thought she had been spiked, and that they shrugged and walked away. Now, that was just after COVID and lockdowns, and that has changed. We know that police are informing officers much more about the telltale signs of what spiking looks like, and to increase their awareness. But that was her experience. And you can hear how matter-of-fact she is about it and how well she remembers the moments before and as much as she can remember during. And she told me just how embarrassed she felt, and again, she put the blame on herself straight away. And that's been one of the most kind of shocking aspects of this for me. And she did say that she believed that her perpetrators had targeted her as part of a sport, completely appreciating what Dawn has been saying as part of their campaign they've been aware of. But she said that she thought she was a victim of a game called Take Them Down, which was just so difficult to comprehend.
It's so malicious, isn't it? It's just so mean and so random.
Yeah. Why would you do that? What is the motivation? What is the intention? And that's been quite difficult for Nikki to understand and process.
And Dawn, if we could just ask you now, what should people do if they think they have been spiked? Because sometimes they might not even know until the following morning or until they wake up with symptoms still that they wouldn't normally have after a night out.
Well, the first thing to do would be, if you can and if you feel able to report it to the police. If you've been sexually assaulted, you can always go to a SARC centre, which is a sexual assault referral centre. Then they can take some evidence from you, and you've actually got a couple of years to decide whether you want to go ahead with pressing charges. Obviously, try and get hold of the venue that you've attended so that they can keep hold of the CCTV. There's certain things that you can do if you're out and you see this happen to a loved one. Try and keep that evidence so that we've got some evidence that we can help the police with their investigations. And here at Stamp Out Spiking, we believe that training is essential. So we're actually, now it's mandatory for the door security to have some sort of level of knowledge of training on spiking so that they've got a step-by-step guide on exactly what to do if they're faced with one of these incidents. And, at Stamp Out Spiking, we believe that getting this accredited training is only going to be massive tick boxes for the day and the nighttime economy, because then they're going to know how to deal with it. Once we know how to deal with it, we're going to start gaining convictions, showing that there's zero tolerance on any of these spiking-related crimes. And then we're going to all start working together so that our communities can make a big dent in stopping these crimes. That's got to be the way forward. It really has.
Dawn, thank you. And Sangita, you spent some time with Sussex Police, and they're doing some training around how to deal with spiking. What have you seen from them, and can it be rolled out across the UK?
Yeah, they're essentially trying to increase awareness around what the initial signs of spiking are, to listen to potential victims of spiking. And they have been rolling out new training for officers. Dawn, you might actually be better placed to talk about how police have changed their training to accommodate new understanding of spiking.
Yes, thank you. So what we've done is, like, the police forces now on our website, we've got a link so that people can report these crimes online. So that's something that's vital. And for us, this grey area is not gaining the samples in time. So we really need to be, the police, we also need to be working with the NHS, because once we get all of those people all working together, then we're going to be able to disseminate all this key safeguarding information. And here at Stamp Out Spiking, we've got accredited training. So if there's any police officers out there who would need our help, we're also speaking to the National Chief Police Council and the College of Policing as well, so that we can see if we can disseminate as much of this training as possible.
Thanks, Dawn. And just to add, actually, when we were out with Sussex Police, one thing they're keen to improve is evidence gathering. One thing that we were told was that if you have been spiked, it's 12 hours is really your window of opportunity to gather evidence, because often the substance in most cases would have left your body. Obviously, if you have been a victim of spiking, you are incapacitated. You're not going to be able to carry out those tests, and there's specific tests. So Sussex Police are trying to improve that. They're trying to improve evidence gathering in terms of CCTV, blood tests. They're also trying to improve victim safety. So much of what we gathered in our investigation and our research was about how victims are taking it upon themselves to protect themselves. Now police are really trying to make sure that that is the case, but from an authority perspective. So they want to make sure that they are protecting victims as well as victims taking it on themselves.
Sure, and presumably having evidence to bring a prosecution should they need to.
Yeah, but one of the key things is, why is the focus not on perpetrators? So that's another key thing that has changed, not just on victim safety, but trying to prevent perpetrators from committing these crimes.
Yeah, it is a very, very big issue. Thank you, Sangita and Dawn, thank you very much for joining us. And thank you for listening. For more on this, head over to ITVX, where you can watch ITV Tonight's latest programme. And do have a look back through our other quick briefings on a range of headline topics to find out what you need to know. Until next time, thanks for listening.